Hello, and welcome to the Foundation of Faith series, The Bridge Builder's Code, Volume 1, by Jenny Jo Bingham. Today we'll be reading Chapter 15, The Day the River Rose. It started with rain again. Not a storm, no cracks of thunder or sky-splitting bolts, just a steady, relentless downpour that began before sunrise and never let up. By noon, the dirt road leading to the bridge had become a ribbon of sludge. By evening, the current below had swollen thick and fast, churning against the temporary scaffolding like a warning. Foam lapped at the braces, rising inch by inch, fingers of water testing the seams. Jake stood beneath a makeshift canopy of plastic sheeting, clothes soaked through despite the cover, water dripping steadily from the edge of his hood. Across the river, the bridge looked darker now, water-stained, shivering under the weight of rising pressure. "Looks like we're losing the lower supports," Marcus muttered, leaning in with narrowed eyes. "We reinforced them last week," Jake said, jaw tight. "Doesn't matter. River doesn't care how new your bolts are." Walt jogged up the incline, a clipboard pinned under his jacket like a lifeline. "Just got the call from upstream," he said, breathing hard. "They released pressure at the reservoir. Water level's going to spike. A foot, maybe more by midnight." Jake didn't move. He just stared at the bridge, half-built, half-tested, already shaking in the flood. "Could take the whole lower section," Marcus said, softer now. Not dramatic, just honest. Jake's voice came low. "I know." They evacuated the site just before dusk. Grace insisted. "There's nothing we can do in this," she said, folding a soaked map into her bag. "Come back tomorrow, assess, rebuild if there's anything left." Jake lingered as the last car pulled away, headlights vanishing up the hill road. He didn't want to leave. He didn't want to admit that something else might be swept away before it was finished. He stepped onto the first support beam and walked slowly out over the river, stopping at the midpoint, where the new planks had been laid. Rain pelted his face. The current roared beneath. He opened the journal. It was madness to do so in the rain, but something in him needed to see the words again. He flipped to the last bookmarked entry, a verse written in thick strokes. "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you." Isaiah 43:2. And below it, his father's handwriting. "The river will rise." That's not failure. That's the test and the testimony. Jake sank to his knees on the wet beam and prayed. Not for the bridge, not even for protection, but for clarity, for the kind of faith that sees past the flood. The wind picked up, tugging at the edges of Jake's coat as he knelt there, journal clutched in damp hands. The rain didn't let up. It only softened, turning from a downpour to a steady hiss against the water below. The kind of rain that lingered, soaked everything it touched, and refused to be ignored. Jake stayed there, heart thudding in rhythm with the river's rush, waiting for something. Not a sign, not a miracle, just enough peace to get back up. He heard footsteps before he saw anyone. "You always pray in the middle of a flood?" Evan's voice cut through the quiet like a shovel in gravel. Dry, unimpressed, but present. Jake didn't look up. "You always sneak up on people mid-breakdown?" Evan stepped onto the beam, careful, steady. "I wasn't sneaking. Just figured if you were going to get washed downstream, someone ought to be here to fish you out." Jake let out a tired breath that might have been a laugh, or just exhaustion. "Thought you left with the others." "I did. Then I circled back. You're predictable like that." They sat there for a beat. Evan crouched beside him now, rain pulling on the planks between them. Jake finally spoke, voice low. "I don't know if it'll hold." Evan shrugged. "Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But either way, you showed up." Jake turned, meeting his eyes. "And if that's not enough?" Evan didn't flinch. "Then you show up again tomorrow." Jake nodded slowly, eyes drifting back to the journal. The ink had started to bleed, his father's words blurring around the edges, but not disappearing. And somewhere inside that mess of rain and rushing current and stubborn hope, Jake felt it settle again. Not the certainty of success, but the call to keep showing up, even in the storm, especially in the storm. The next morning, the water had crested, but the structure had held. Barely. The lower supports were mangled, the footing had shifted, but the core spine, the section where Jake had prayed, where others had gathered, remained. And people returned, more than before. Some brought food, some brought tools, some just came to stand beside him. Sylvia Winston arrived with a clipboard and a grim expression, but she laid it on the table instead of weaponizing it. I made some calls, she said, looking Jake in the eye. I can't make the red tape disappear, but I can get us temporary site status under emergency relief protocol. Jake blinked. You'd do that? Sylvia folded her arms. Let's just say I believe in what the river didn't take. By the end of the day, work had resumed, slower, wetter, but with more hands than ever. Jake didn't try to rally them with speeches. He just showed up, soaked, sleeves rolled, lifting and hauling like everyone else. It wasn't about leading anymore. It was about standing. And somehow, the people of Silver Ridge kept showing up too. One board, one prayer, one rising hope at a time. And that is the end of chapter 15. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again next time. Have a great day.